Hey guys, it's David Whitney with Right Politics. I wanted to know what you guys have thought about the last few days. After the RNC, it was pretty obvious that Donald Trump is more of a front runner for president. I would say that because he has such great polls. I was reading this poll where he is up like 6, 7% in all the battleground states, and we could be looking at a landslide victory in the same way Reagan won in 84 and just completely demolished the Democratic candidate. And I really just believe, honestly, that it's because of all of the individual empowerment, not socially, economically, but just like, I don't know, people who need the ability to provide for themselves without the government taking so much of their paycheck. I don't know, where I was working, they started taking like 11.5% of my paycheck when it was always 9%. People don't want the government slowly taking away from their financial freedoms. So there's two types of governments. Well, it's more than two, but the big ones in the United States are the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And the Republicans want for you, the individual American, to have the last say so of where your money goes. And they've always done everything to give the American people charge of their finances. Even the act of giving it to charities in exchange for, tax write-offs is saying that the American people can choose better than the government where their money goes. So if you are an American citizen and you owe $10,000 in taxes, and you can say, well, I'm either going to give this to the government or give it to a charity. That charitable donation is a tax write off. So the government's saying we're going to give the people the power to choose where their tax dollars go. And that is part of the American spirit of meritocracy and freedom of choice for your money. So it's so important to keep those values because the more the government decides where your money goes, it often goes to the wrong places. Yes, we have good roads in some parts of the country. Yes, we have good public services in some parts of the country. But the rest of it, I've always seen when a Republican's in office, they take a higher love of the people because they want the people to keep their own money. And they're basically saying that the individual has more wisdom of how they spend their money to better their lives than the government. And the government, like I said, oftentimes spends it wrong. So, what kind of government do you want to be in charge of America? Do you want a government that is just hell bent on spending your money in bad ways, or one that releases the power of economic security back to the people? The reason I say this is when I studied stockbroking and different, economic theories and things like that, I learned that governments can legally invest in open bonds in the stock market. So any problems we have as a country, as far as overspending, if the money's actually allocated towards the future of America, you wouldn't spend anything more than necessary. You wouldn't be putting it towards gender studies in Pakistan or, as Alex Jones said, the waters that made the frogs turn gay. Because I always used to say that America was the land of the free and the home of the brave. Except for Donald Trump and Alex Jones, because liberty and justice for all, except for Donald Trump and Alex Jones, because they prosecuted them so much. But anyways, the idea that this money's going to those types of organizations when we're trillions of dollars in debt, what I would do is put the money in the stock market as the United States government, like 5% of our GDP that is, taken from taxes should go into some type of trust fund for America that would contribute to the success of America under the conditions that it cannot be sold for 10 years. And it's not something that's supposed to fund Social Security or benefits like that. It's just as an investor myself, I take a portion of my income and invest it in the stock market or crypto. So you invest your money for 10 years and it grows and grows and grows. So what I'm trying to say is, instead of taking more money from the American people, they should take a small portion of like a Republican government's budget, which is, a lot smaller than Democratic budget, and throw it into something like the S&P 500 and put it in a trust that the United States government cannot sell off. And in 10 years, the money would double. And that's if the market is, just doing average. But I'm talking about like if there's billions of dollars that are being spent on garbage programs, the only way we can reduce our debt is by stop spending or use money and allocate it differently and towards investments that will make everybody better off as a country. So if we're going to pay off the national debt, just take like 5% of what we spend in our budget and throw it in a trust fund that says, Congress, you cannot touch this for 10 years. And it's going in like the S&P 500. Then in 10 years, that money will double and it will be sold off to pay off the national debt. So it would be like, you cannot touch this trust fund. The money has to go directly towards the national debt in 10 years. And what that would do is there would be a sell-off period where the stock would go down, but overall it would rebound and make everyone more wealthy because a rising tide floats all boats. So they did it so much during COVID that in 2020, the United States government was buying junk bonds. So the junk bonds would just be like really bad companies that were on the verge of breakdown and economic collapse. And they would potentially be bailing out these companies by buying their worthless stock and propping up the price. So if they did that to junk bonds, why not invest in real American companies and make the stock price go up for companies like Tesla and Microsoft and Boeing and all these other big companies in the S&P 500? And if you're going to throw government money at something, might as well make it be something that is worthwhile and big and that's going to help America and American brands and American companies. You wouldn't spend government money buying Bed Bath & Beyond stock when the company was filing for bankruptcy, or Hertz, because that's a horrible investment. You would invest in companies like Coca-Cola. So imagine if $1 billion were to be spent on Coca-Cola and the United States government created a fund and put $1 billion, just like BlackRock and all these other guys do, and they buy Coca-Cola. Then Coca-Cola goes up in price, 5-6%, a year, and it also pays dividends. Well, those dividends will be not taxed because it's bought by a government program, and the dividends, which is like 2%, should go towards paying off our national debt. And then that's how pensions work. There's a lump sum of money that the government puts into the stock market, and the dividends that it pays is what pays pension recipients. So in the same way, we can make a huge trust fund for the United States of America that we put into even annually, and the interest that it earns could pay off our national debt slowly but surely. But right now we're not doing much at all to pay off our national debt. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. And we will see you next time on another episode of Right Politics.